Okay, can we please turn to Exodus chapter 3. We're going to be continuing on the series of Moses, and Moses is on the brink of threshold of something new. So Exodus chapter 3 and verse 11. And we're going to be chopping and changing, so just go with the flow. But Moses protested to God, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" God answered, "I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain." But Moses protested, "If I go to the people of Israel and tell them that the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, 'What is his name?' Then what should I tell them?" God replied to Moses, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations." And then can you turn to chapter 4, verse 1? But Moses protested again, What if they won't believe me or listen to me? What if they say, 'The Lord never appeared to you'?" Then the Lord asked him, "What is that in your hand?" "A shepherd's staff," Moses replied. "Throw it down on the ground," the Lord told him. So Moses threw down the staff, and it turned into a snake. Moses jumped back. I think I would have done too. Then the Lord told him, "Reach out and grab its tail." So Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a shepherd's staff in his hand. "Perform this sign," the Lord told him, "then they will believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, really has appeared to you." Can we jump to verse 10, please? But Moses pleaded with the Lord, "Oh Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been, and I'm not now, even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue-tied, and my words get tangled." Then the Lord asked Moses, "Who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to say." But Moses again pleaded, "Lord, please send anyone else." Then the Lord became angry with Moses. "All right," he said, "what about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he speaks well, and look, he's on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesman and to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. And take your shepherd's staff with you, and use it to perform the miraculous signs I have shown you." What an amazing conversation taking place there between Moses and God. Okay, let's have a quick looking at Moses so far. We looked at his birth and when he was protected and rescued from the River Nile. Then we saw him growing up in the palace, fleeing as a criminal from Pharaoh, becoming a refugee as a foreigner in Midian, where he settled. He found a new life, a new family, a new job. So he was rescued from death. He was restored in the desert of Midian. And then at the age of 80, he met with God, or rather God met with him, and God reveals his destiny, his new destiny. In fact, the very reason for which all the above took place, the very reason for which he was born, to lead the people of Israel out of slavery and bondage in Egypt to freedom, to that land that he had promised Abraham that we heard earlier on in the children's slot. And he led them into the promised land. So this encounter at the burning bush is the start of such an amazing relationship between God and Moses. I think it is a very precious relationship, and it's just wonderful. We left Moses with a cliffhanger moment of hearing the task from God, which was in verse 10, which I didn't read, but I'll just read to you now in chapter 3. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. I can imagine shock, horror, and utter disbelief. What? Me? You've got the wrong guy. Absolutely. I've messed up. I am not wanted in the courts of Pharaoh. Okay? I am a wanted man. I'm not popular in the courts of Pharaoh. What is your response when you're asked to do something you're unsure of or feel inadequate to do? What excuses do you come up with? Moses has 5 excuses or arguments that he brings before God to protest the new commission. Fear, doubt, unworthiness, nerves, rejection, all add up to reluctance. But we're going to see how God answers and addresses each of those excuses. And as he answers them, he reveals aspects of himself and his character. I get Moses, I really do, and I identify with many of his excuses. So let's look at his first excuse. Who am I? I've messed up. I am totally unqualified. I am unworthy. I'm just a simple shepherd minding someone else's sheep. Do you feel like that sometimes? I know I do a lot of the time. Who am I that I should do X, Y, and Z? Someone can do X, Y, and Z so much better than me. I mess up. And here's Moses. He had messed up before in Egypt. Who am I that I should do this? I am unqualified. But look at God's response. He gives him a wonderful promise, a promise of his presence. Certainly I will be with you. And that is a promise for each one of us. No one is excluded of having God's presence with you. He promises his presence and he reinforces that again and again. Moses got to know and rely on God's presence so much so that he gets to the point that he says, if your presence doesn't go with us, then do not send us up from here. That's in Exodus 33:14. And God's reply to that statement was, I will personally go with you, Moses. My presence will go with you. Let us be carriers of his presence 24/7. Not just when we're here or when we're with other Christians or when just we're reading the Bible. 24/7, God promises his presence with us. So after that, I sense that Moses is warming up to the idea, but he has a second excuse. He felt unauthoritative. I know that sounds like a long word, isn't it? Try saying it. It's a tongue twister. Unauthoritative. Okay, who shall I say is sending me? They will ask for your name. What should I say? Under whose authority am I going? That's all he wanted to know. All the Egyptian gods, they have different names, and he felt that the Israelite would like to know what the name of the Hebrew god was. If something is authoritative, it is recognized as true, valid, dependable, and reliable. Okay, let's read those again. It's recognized as true, valid, dependable, and reliable. And the Israelites would see and recognize that Moses was under God's authority. How does God answer this excuse? Well, I just think this is amazing. He reveals his own personal name. When you give your name to somebody, you give them a lot of information, and he reveals his own personal name. I am who I am. God even tells him what to say. Say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. He's the one who is, who was, and is to come. The one who has no beginning and no end, the Alpha and the Omega, who is before and outside time. The one who never slumbers or sleeps. He's the eternal God, the unchangeable one, the I am, the present one, not the past, future, he is there, but he is I am, the present one. Now, that's some authority, isn't it? That is the highest authority you can possibly have. God sending you, and God behind you. Also, God tells Moses exactly what was going to happen. The leaders would believe him when he told them that God has sent him, but Pharaoh wouldn't. If Moses was listening carefully, he would hear actually what God was saying. It's not going to be easy, but the outcome was going to be exactly what God said: freedom for the Israelites. So Moses maybe was not necessarily surprised or discouraged when he encountered Pharaoh's stubbornness. God had warned him. It's good to see that difficulties are not just obstacles, but they are opportunities for God to act. Moses is still not happy. He comes up with a third excuse, which I've called unaccepted. Fear of rejection. The what if question. But what if they don't believe me? I think maybe he was having that flashback when he encountered the two Hebrews that were fighting each other, and he tried to intercede, and he was perplexed. Why would two Hebrew men fight each other? And then they challenged or accused him, who are you who made you or appointed you prince or judge over us? Moses had gone before the time that God had asked him to do things in that case. Painful memories are hard to erase. He was afraid, I think, they would remember the Moses of old. How often our fear is, what will others say, right? What will others do? What will others think? How will others react? But I'm reminded, what was God's first response and promise to Moses? I will go with you. My presence will be with you. So how does God respond to this third excuse that Moses presents of, they will reject me? God graciously gives him not only one, but 3 miracles to perform. We just looked at one of them. And he asks Moses a very simple, practical question. What is that in your hand? A shepherd's staff. Now, basically, that's just a stick. That's all it was, is a stick that he used as shepherding. But at God's word, it becomes a snake and then reverts to a staff. It's an ordinary stick. That's all it is. The power wasn't in the stick. It was God's power performing the miracle. Like the bush, it was an ordinary bush, but God's presence made it stand out. It made it not burn up, be on fire, but not burn up. It was an ordinary bush. This is an ordinary stick. It has nothing to do with that, but in God's hands, ordinary things can become extraordinary. Moses, when he was seeing these miracles that God was showing him, he was experiencing and seeing the power of God firsthand. He had the front row seat, and he was the audience of one. There's nobody else around. He was the audience of one. This was for him. What's in your hand? The widow just had a little flour and oil, but it fed her, her son, and Elijah for the time that the drought lasted, for over 3 years. Just a little flour and a little oil. The other widow, she only had a little oil and a few jars, but she got loads of other jars, empty jars. And she filled them all up and sold them and got the creditors off her back. David had a slingshot and 5 stones, although he only needed 1. The little boy had only a small boy's picnic, but in God's hands, it fed 5,000 men. What's in your hand? In God's hand, ordinary things can become, or do become, extraordinary. With this response of showing the miracles, God reveals his power to Moses. And this was just a tiny glimpse of what can do. A lot more was to come, as we well know. I think that staff that he had became a visible reminder of God's power and promise, a daily reminder. And God told him, take that staff with you. So a simple question, what do you have in your hand? What do I have in my hand? We may think it's nothing, but with God, it can achieve an awful lot. We may have a practical talent. It may be musical or artistic. It can be drawing, craft, DIY, design. We can have a gift with people. We have the ability of making friends. We can have hospitality, baking, cooking, administration, dealing numbers, encouragement. That's a great gift to have. Time. We feel we may have nothing at all, yet we have ourselves. There is a song that's called The Stand, and in it, it says, have my heart. Okay, it may have nothing, but it says, I stand, my soul, Lord, to you surrendered. All I am is yours. All I am is yours. 1 Peter 4:10 tells us that whatever gift we have, we are to use it to serve others. Mary has said, I am your humble servant, be unto me as you will. Isaiah, here I am, send me. Samuel, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. What is God asking of you? And are you willing to say, here I am? It's a very searching and challenging question to each of us, myself included. Yet after all this, Moses is still not convinced. He's not just protesting now, he is now pleading and presents his 4th excuse. Now I've made a word up. He said, I'm uneloquent. I made the word up because I'm using the UN words, okay? So I've then added unskilled. So actually Philip gave me that word. It's unskilled, okay? But he actually was saying, I am not eloquent. That's 2 words, and I wanted 1, so it became uneloquent. But unskilled, I'm not a good public speaker. I'm not good with words, is what he said. I don't know what to say. How often I say that, I don't know what to say. Yet in Acts later on, we read that he was both powerful in speech and action. It's not because he was eloquent. He still wasn't eloquent, but because God spoke through him. That is why he was powerful in speech and action. So God spoke through him and worked through him. It was all God's doing. What excuses could we come up with? I don't know what to do. I'm no good at whatever. I can't do X. I can't do Y. I can't do Z. And if we wait till we are perfect, we might not do anything. How often we hear it said God wants our availability, not necessarily our ability. God's response to Moses reveals that he is the creator God. Who made you? Who has given you voice? Who has given you hands? You know, who made you? In Genesis 1:27, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God created you. God created me. And guess what? we are each a masterpiece. God's masterpiece. And he says, it's good. God tells him again that he will be with him as he speaks, and he will instruct him and tell him what to say. And he promises us the same. In Mark 13:11, Jesus told his disciples, "But when you're arrested and stand trial, don't worry in advance about what to say. Just say what God tells you at that time. For it is not you who will be speaking, but the Holy Spirit." I haven't been arrested and I've not stood trial, but there have been many times and conversations that I didn't know what to say. And then suddenly I find myself giving a good response. And I know full well that it's not me. God had given the inspiration. And later I would think, wow, that was good. I must remember that for the next time. But the next time I wouldn't be able to remember, because that, what God gave me, was for that time, that place, for that person. And here God tells Moses, and he tells us as well, that it's his responsibility to tell us what to say. But finally we get to the real reason for all the reasons and excuses that we've already seen. It's plain and simple. Moses is unwilling to go. Moses admitted that he just simply doesn't want to go. Please, Lord, send someone else, not me. I really do not want to do it. I don't want to go back there. Life is good here, and I'm just happy to stay. Passivity and fear can paralyze us and cause us not to get involved. Getting involved is costly. Getting involved is costly. My father grew up in a Christian home, and then when he became a Christian, he had a job. He was in the Navy, and while he was in the Navy, everything was just always fine. And suddenly, he felt God called him to become a missionary. And the way that he summed it up was that God had called him, or rather that God had saved him, not to be satisfied, but God had called him or saved him to serve. Not saved to be satisfied, but saved to serve. And we are all called to serve. We've all been given gifts, and we can serve each other. So to this excuse, argument, final one that Moses presents, I don't want to do it, how does God respond? He gets angry. God gets angry. So yes, he responds with anger, and quite rightly so, you could say. But look as well, there's also great compassion. Two aspects of God's character, anger and compassion. In Numbers 14:18, God himself declared of himself, "The Lord is slow to anger and filled with unfailing love, forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion." In Psalm 145:8, "The Lord is merciful and compassionate, slow to get angry, and filled with unfailing love." He is angry with Moses, yes, but he is also merciful. God is full of love and mercy. And so he sends his brother Aaron to be his spokesperson and helper. If God is asking you or me to do something, he promises he won't leave us alone. But if we say no, he may well get someone else. But then we'd miss out. Moses ran out of excuses and eventually surrendered. We've been singing about surrendering. And Moses, as he surrendered, he then went on to do exactly what God was asking of him. He led the Israelites out of Egypt, and he led them in the wilderness for 40 years. But in that time, his relationship with God grew and deepened, speaking with him face to face. He also experienced loads of miraculous of God's power, God's provision, and God's care. He experienced all that. So I guess the question is, what is God asking of us? And what do we have in our hands? I'd encourage us not to put up any excuses, but surrender and not miss out on what God has got for each one of us.